I believe if I eat my leftovers, I can find my way into a brand new episode of This Podcast is for Nerds with someone who's never lost, Mr. Calvin, and me, who enjoys my leftovers, Mr. Zach. I have no reference for leftovers. We're talking about The Leftovers Season 1 today.
Yeah.
This is Media Focus. This is a Calvin show that he wanted me to watch, and I did get through the season. Calvin helped me, I would say, because he told me ahead of time. For those who haven't seen The Leftovers, this is a spoiler alert. He told me you never figure out why people disappeared, and I'm glad he gave me that premise, because that was going to annoy the living shit out of me and probably change how I viewed this show.
Yeah, I think mostly I base that off of, and I don't know if it was in the episode last time, but your wife is not a fan of Lost.
Oh, whoa.
I think for similar reasons, that you don't get a lot of answers.
That's actually what her commentary was for Leftovers. Because you asked me how she thought of it, and she basically said to tell you that she's waiting for Jacob to show up and explain where the polar bears are. or explain the polar bears, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think the polar bears are explained in Lost, but
I have no idea.
We should just do a Lost podcast.
Oh man.
I would love that.
But we'd also be found.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. We would be. That's funny. It's weirdly timed. So probably my favorite podcast is currently doing a rewatch of Leftovers, and they just started it last week, which is super funny. That we're doing this now.
We have to be careful about that one.
Yeah,
let's just reach out and do a dual cast. So let's just do.
Oh, that. I would love that. Steve Zaragoza, I know you're not listening to this, but would love to have you on.
If there's anybody who has extra time, just at Steve and be like, hey, somebody loves your podcast, and a lot of people love your podcast, but in particular, they're watching Leftovers also, so you should rope them in.
Yeah, so it's funny because I was listening. They're doing 2 episodes a week, and they did episodes 3 and 4 the other day, and I was listening to it, and they were talking about, or he was talking about, as the show was airing, he was doing a watch podcast kind of recap show. Mm-hmm. And HBO did this really cool thing where they sent him a those like virtual picture frames where you can put digital images and it'll kind of cycle through a bunch. They sent him one of those, but it was 2 people from the Guilty Remnant, and and it was a video, and it's just them kind of staring at you, and then they go to like write something, and then they show it up to the screen, and they wrote out "Stop wasting your breath," and they literally wrote out his name. So it was like, "Stop wasting your breath, Steve." And it was just, it just reminded me that this show, like as it was airing, it was super cool. It had one of those like ARG, like I remember being in forums like every Sunday after the episode aired, talking with people about it with like theories on what's going on. So yeah, we'll do a really quick overview of what the show is, and then maybe you can give it a rating, and then we'll get into spoilers. I think this is going to be kind of a long episode, maybe.
It will definitely be a very you-driven episode, because I have probably more questions and commentary on the style and on what drew me in and what deterred me versus like you went and spent time in the forums and stuff like that. Like you could probably shed a lot of light or throw things into a darker closet based on what you may or may not have found.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the premise of The Leftovers, it is a novel written by Tom Perrotta, and the series was written and adapted by Damon Lindelof, who is famous for the Lost series. But Tom Perrotta also worked on the show, which is super cool. And the first season of Leftovers is based off the one book that exists for The Leftovers. So seasons 2 and 3 are entirely their own thing. They're self-contained. Or, well, no, I don't want to say they're self-contained, because it is a continuation of season 1. They're entirely separate from any other instance of the book. So the basic premise of the show is on October 14th, 2% of the world's population just disappeared, and there's no answer as to what caused it. So the first season of the show takes place 3 years after that happened, and kind of focuses in on this one town, this one community that is impacted by that happening. They call it the Great Departure. And so I think that's pretty much all we can really say without getting into like theories and spoilers and stuff. So I think if you enjoyed Lost for the mystery, and if you were more interested in learning about these characters, these deeply flawed characters, I think it is a show that you would enjoy. If you are expecting answers, you're not going to get them for a lot of this stuff. And that's something you kind of have to accept. But if you like diving in, and, you know, if you have an interest in religion plays a pretty big aspect of this show, and are interested in a show with, in my opinion, probably one of the best scores of any TV show of all time, and just kind of want to like dive deep and do research on a show. Like, I don't think a lot of people want to do that, but if that's something that's interesting to you, I think this show is worthwhile. To me, it is my favorite show ever made. I have not had a show top it yet. And if you were interested in season 1 and are questioning whether you should watch season 2 and 3, I think this is probably the weakest season of the 3.
Interesting.
Yeah. So for me, it's a 5 out of 5. Zach, what's your take on the show?
I think that looking at it from a perspective of not trying to solve a mystery, I have to give it a pretty solid 4 out of 5, because it does cause you to think. It does cause you to get attached. It does cause you to like want to. It's weird because I love a good mystery, right? So,
yeah. Well, yeah, we watched It Invaded. I mean, that was a wonderful, man. I want to go back. Like, I'm ready for a second season of that.
I was listening to the song earlier, like the ending songs. I was like, fuck, why is there a season of that?
So good.
Like I said, it's a great show. I think the only thing that knocks it down for me is that it's a mystery that will never be solved. And for someone who likes mysteries, it's hard to shake that. But I think the way the show's done, it's very like, it still has that gothic noir vibe in a modern day setting, and it's more cerebral and emotionally based. Like, you know how Fight Club wasn't an action movie by any means. In the beginning was rather slow and kind of like you're learning through the main character's like trauma and how he deals with the world. There's a lot of unexplained questions in that movie as well, but the way it's done pulls you into the story. And I feel like this is the same vibe to me as that, where like half the time I honestly didn't know what the hell was going on, and I didn't know what was being dreamed versus what was actually happening.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like that, I think when you take a step back from a show to look at it in all its parts, it helps you kind of get in the swing of like what the intent is. Because I feel like, especially since we started the Media Club in particular, I've watched things that if I had looked at it the way I enjoy watching all things, I wouldn't have liked a couple things. Like, I wouldn't have been necessarily into Burning, but I took a step back and took the whole thing in as a whole and found what I enjoyed about it. And it's the same with this. Like, I love mysteries, but if I take myself back from, hey, this is a mystery of how people, like 2%, which is, first of all, what's 2% of the population currently? Because I feel like that would be, people don't understand that level of like how much that sucks. Because you hear 2%, like, oh, that's why news media also, by the way, for those of you who don't know this, when they want to emphasize how bad something is, they change the numbers. So if it's a really small thing, but a large number of bad things happen, they'll use the actual number. If they're trying to downplay it, they use a percentage. Just a little quick thing there.
Yeah, it's 156 million. So 2% of the world's population would be 156 million, which is about half.
Substantial.
Yeah, I mean, that's half of the U.S. So
yes. So look at it that way. Half of the U.S. suddenly up and disappears. When I stopped to not try to focus on that, which is hard because it's a major part of the show, it really kind of makes you realize what the show's about. It's about the leftovers. It's not finding the 2%. It's what's happening to these people and their psyche and their mind after this major crazy ass event happens worldwide. And I think you could, in this universe, take a magnifying glass over any said community and observe them and make a great show out of it. Because that's fucking insane.
yeah. I just think the premise is so interesting, and my wife has, I believe, read the book, or she's read some Tom Perrotta books, but I definitely want to go and read the book and kind of compare. So yeah, I think we'd both recommend it. Is that fair to say?
I'd recommend it if you are not trying to solve the mystery.
Okay, and I do want to say,
don't do that.
I do want to say, we don't necessarily get the answer to why, but we do get some answers of maybe where and their status. I'll go that far. There's some spoiler there, but I don't want to say you're completely in the dark. Okay.
I think going off of season 1 and what I liked about it, and what I would say I'm skeptical about season 2 and 3, it just seems like the end of season 1 tied things up so perfectly. Like, maybe not perfect, but I feel like it went through where if they didn't do a 2 and 3, that would kind of like cinch it off. And maybe that's because that's how the book is. I don't know, because it's just one book, right?
Yeah, so there's only one book, and apparently season 1 pretty much just follows the first book. So I don't know if Tom ever had the intention on writing a sequel. I mean, he did work on the show throughout all 3 seasons.
I didn't realize that he was on the show. That's something that's super rare. Like,
yeah,
that's awesome to see that.
I think Damon Lindelof and I think in my opinion, he's probably the best TV showrunner. He's done Lost, he did Leftovers, and he did Watchmen. Watchmen was probably one of my favorite shows of last year. It's so good. I think that would be worth a watch too.
Is it better than the movie?
Oh, 100%. I would not even put them in the same league.
Good, because I hated the movie.
Like, if I was gonna compare them like score wise, I would give Watchmen a 1 and I would give the TV show a 5. Like, they're so different.
I would give the movie even more or less than that, just because of
that's fair.
Just no Batman.
Apparently the director's cut, so Zack Snyder, I think, is the one that did Watchmen.
Yeah.
Apparently the director's cut's like almost 4 hours long. It's apparently pretty insane. Yeah, I have not watched it. But yeah,
isn't the movie itself 3 hours? Like,
it might be, honestly. Yeah, that is likely. I remember it felt like it was 3 hours if it wasn't.
It's kind of funny because I forgot where I read this, but basically someone was like, if you tell someone, hey, I have an 8-hour movie for you to watch, no one's going to watch it. But if I say, hey, I have 8 hour-long segments for you of this show.
Boy, that's so accurate.
We've been binging for the whole time anyway. So
right, exactly. We just watched 10 hours of something. Yeah. So yeah. Well, I guess it's because it's in one sitting, right? Like, I'm not gonna. My wife will do this occasionally, like split up a movie. To me, a movie is like one thing. I don't care how long it is. It's gonna be in one sitting. I'm not gonna take breaks.
That's what I liked about Burning and with Parasite. They were both pretty long movies, but I didn't feel like they were long movies.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. And they were very engaging. And, there's, for me, like, Return of the King is, I think the extended edition is 4 hours, but it doesn't feel like it to me. Like it certainly feels long, but it doesn't feel like 4 hours. It's a very engaging movie.
So I could drive from here to London and back. Well, I could drive to London at least for 4 hours.
Yeah, that's true. I've never been there.
We want to go. Also, we were also thinking about if you guys would be interested once COVID is over and done, doing a Airbnb in Toronto because there's a lot of badass food out there.
Yes, I have not been to Toronto in 6 years. I saw one of my favorite bands broke up and they were doing their last show in Toronto. So that was the last time I was there, and they had great food. There's a good music scene there, so it'd be fun to do like a show too. Do
you know why I brought up Toronto?
I don't.
Because I keep bringing in Lost references. We are Lost, and I did it on purpose, and now we're back. Wow. So we don't have any leftovers talk to. Damn it! I got to work with leftovers in better. I'm not sure to do that just yet, but we're back on it.
Living reminders.
You know what? I will say what I thought was wild, and I think what appealed to me was similar to how I mentioned Fight Club earlier. Doing a deep dive of like what it does to people's minds.
Oh my gosh!
How people like rectify this.
Yeah, I think
the episode where the police captain. I keep forgetting his name right now.
Kevin Garvey.
Thank you.
Yeah, Justin Theroux. My God, does your wife find him attractive?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. All right.
Where did it come from?
Mine is, and I am also very much attracted to him. He's
fair enough.
He's a good-looking boy.
He's not bad. I just didn't expect that, and I know what your point was. You got me lost now.
Yes,
oh, fantastic.
Sorry. So maybe, he was. Probably. You were talking about Garvey.
The episode with his shirts.
Oh my gosh! Just
holy shit, dude.
When he goes into that guy's store and just goes off on him. He's like, no, you open the door. He's like, sorry, sir, we're closed. Oh my gosh.
That rang, like, there are a lot of like moments to me that like rang back to Fight Club, but that one in particular, just like, you're trying to hold it together, you're trying to keep it normal, you're going on runs, and people are just fucking with you. Let alone you're already an officer, you're a captain, you're the chief of police in your town. So you have to deal with that on a public level and try to keep the peace when everything's gone awry. You're keeping your personal life, trying to keep that together when everything's gone awry. And now you think someone's fucking with you. Like, and then that dude with that dog guy, like all of this shit.
Dean is great. I think that whole thing is super interesting.
I literally thought until they showed it that was him imagining himself.
Well, no, totally. I think that's entirely intentional. I mean, there are segments where you're like, is this Dean guy real? And then there's, I think the first instance where you realize, oh, he's an actual human is when Kevin wants to institute the curfew in the town, and he's there. And he they interact, and he's there in the audience, and you're like, oh, okay, he's real.
I don't know, man. Even that was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, even then, because he's interacting with Kevin, he's not interacting with the rest of the town. It's like, I could see it just be like, when you see Garvey Sr. talking to people that aren't there, like, you could imagine a world where like the captain is like just talking to nobody in that instance.
And like, I did have the sneaky thought also. And obviously this was this was confirmed against me in the beginning. I think like episode 3 or 4 is when I thought, what if the captain's alone and like this is his mind processing being in an empty city he's guarding no one of now?
Oh, that's interesting. It's like what was that movie with Will Smith? I Am
Legend. Yeah. Only in his mind everyone's still there, and he's like set up these scenarios where he's like fucking with himself.
That's very interesting.
And I was like, holy shit, I need to stick to the show. I'm going really far off now.
No, yeah, totally. That's super interesting. Yeah, and I think you make a good point that for me, the interesting part about this show and the interesting part for me about Lost were the characters. They're all deeply flawed, and they all come from these different backgrounds. And they will have these episodes. And Lost did this really well. I think they kind of almost pioneered it. These like flashbacks where you learn a little bit about this character, and then some of the decisions they make in present day become more impactful and maybe make a little bit more sense. Like the first instance to me where like it's interesting to see how the 2% of the world disappearing has affected people is, I think it's in the first episode or the second, where Jill and her friend Amy go to that party and they're playing that game on their phones. And it's like, I remember watching it the first time around with my wife because we watched it when it aired. And it's like, it's got this, so basically they're playing spin the bottle, but it's on their phone and they spin it and it's got a different thing that you do to that person. And you think, oh, it's like 7 minutes in heaven, but they have things on there like burn and choke. And so like this kid's got a lighter over a spoon and he puts the spoon to the guy's arm and they see how long they can hold it there for. And it seems crazy. And I remember talking with her the first time we were watching. I'm like, I don't remember this kind of thing at my parties in high school. Like, this seems crazy.
This was definitely how the community BDSM started with old Zach. No, I'm just kidding. I never played Spin the Bottle, and if I played Spin the Bottle in high school, I'm pretty sure someone would opt out to stop playing the game if they got me. So
yeah. Oh, jeez.
Whatever.
Well, and I think it's not supposed to be realistic because it's supposed to be portraying these kids are so numb because of what happened. They need to do these extreme things so they can feel something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially because I forgot, where was this setting? Like, what was the setting for this?
So it's set in New York. It's a fictional town. But it's a very small community.
There you go. It's more of a smaller town feel, and because of that, it's not like you lost half population in a big city where you still could like go and drink and party. This is like you knew everyone in this small town.
Yeah.
So you got to watch everyone get dragged through the gutter at once.
Yeah, and it's like there's like 1 degree of separation between you and somebody you know that has lost somebody because of this. I think it's kind of hinted at, but like Jill's best friend Amy, who kind of lives with them, it's kind of assumed that her parents or one of her parents departed. And that's why she's staying with them.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody in the show, at least they don't think it was publicized, that still has a whole complete either family or family unit.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because and they get into it as the show goes on. Like we learn that no one in the Garvey household departed, but because of the departure, marriages fell apart, people moved on. So these families are all fractured, even though they weren't inherently, they didn't experience the departure.
I think, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a stretch, but I feel like in a small town, especially like how my experience has been moving to Michigan, your family unit isn't necessarily based on your last name. I feel like everybody in the town got hit, regardless of like.
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah, that's more of what I meant, like family unit or family, like not necessarily like blood related. Like everybody went to the gutter in this one.
Agreed. Totally agreed. I think in discussions of this show, in retrospect, I think a lot of people, because the show like was never a hit, and this is like the worst part to me, was this show was like so like completely in my opinion, completely disrespected by HBO.
I can see that. Honestly.
They gave the show 3 seasons. It was a cult hit. I wouldn't say it had a huge viewership like a lot of HBO shows had, but the fans that were there were rabid. I mean, these people would spend hours on forums just talking about theories and stuff. I mean, it's similar to Lost. I mean, but Lost was backed by an NBC, so everyone had access to that channel. You know, HBO is a premium subscription. But anyways, it got 3 seasons. I think there was only 1 nomination for an Emmy on this show. There was never a writing, best drama. Ann Dowd, who plays Patty on the show. Can
I say that also in the beginning, I thought that was Margot Martindale.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I was first like, wait, is that Mark? No, it's not. Is it Mark? No, it's not Margot. Never mind.
Ann Dowd is fantastic. She's such a great actress.
Okay, I'm going to say too, the ability to act out a scene without fucking talking.
Oh, so powerful, right? I mean, the acting in the show, like, regardless of how you feel about the show as a whole, the acting in the show is like undeniably insane.
It definitely like it made me stop and think too. Like, I think like after I watched it is when I stopped and think like. I think that shows like this make you do that. They make you think not just like, oh, what are the characters going through, but what would happen if that happened right now?
Totally.
And I think the best part about this show is that it is in a small town setting. But one thing that I don't think is observed, and I have to double check, you can call me on this or not because I can't remember it right now, is the effect of a small town, but everyone looking into the small town and that small town having some sort of trying to figure out stability versus like, because I know the FBI gets called in at one point on a national scale even. You know, people in places of power disappearing or departing, and then all of a sudden having to pick up the pieces and create civil order. So, like, even the people in the town could feel like, hey, we are trying to figure our own shit out, but we're also could be potentially targeted by outside forces that are bigger to come and overrun us.
Oh, totally.
Like, all of this is just like Mad Max Apocalypto. No, not Apocalypto. That's a movie about cavemen. But just absolute madness.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So there's we are bouncing around in the story, but I guess that's fine. We're just kind of talking about how we feel about the season as a whole.
Yeah, someone else is already doing a deep dive of each episode.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's not what we're here for. But I think that's super interesting is like seeing like how other places are impacted. And I think it's worth checking the other seasons because without spoiling anything crazy, our characters that we follow do not stay in that town.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I think it might be worth checking out the other two seasons. But yeah, you know, getting into the FBI thing, like another thing that felt really cool and made it feel more realistic, I guess, was like when ATF was called because of one of the guilty remnant was murdered. So one of Garvey's officers called the FBI and they called ATF. I don't know if you noticed, but ATF, the acronym was changed. So it's alcohol, tobacco, firearms, explosives, and cults.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, so now they're called AFTC. So, and there's little hints of it. This show does this a lot. Like, you kind of like, it's almost worth a rewatch just for. There's little hints that they give you throughout the season. Like there'll be like a TV program on in the background, and maybe it's not like it's not super loud. You kind of have to listen for it, but like they mention kind of offhand in the show. When Kevin calls the ATF guy, like there's cults popping up all over the country. And this is like an issue that they're all dealing with. And he even mentions to Kevin, like, you know, we've dealt with this before. We can handle this for you if we want. We just make them go away. Yeah. And it's like, oh, that'd be cool to just get like a spin-off season of one cult that kind of got erased by the U.S. government. Like that would be a super interesting season to me.
As long as it doesn't happen in Texas, I think we're good.
It's funny that you mentioned that.
Is it?
No. Well, so they do in one of the seasons, our cast ends up in a town in Texas. I don't want to say anything more because I think the reason that they picked that town is super interesting.
Okay.
So that's all I'll say. But they do end up in Texas.
It's not okay. Before this gets like darker than it needs to be.
Yeah, because this is like a super depressing show.
This town does not start with a W, right?
No, it's a made up town.
Okay, because I don't want any.
Oh no, Waco, no Waco.
We don't need to go do that. That sucks.
yeah, no, that's awful. I just so I just think this show just does a really good job of building a universe, even though the show is pretty grounded. relative to what some may think of as like a, I don't know, like I guess the show would classify as like a supernatural show, based on some of the stuff that happens. I would
say definitely it's more psychological.
Yeah. Oh, certainly for some of the characters. Yeah. I guess the main premise of like 2% of the world's population just disappearing.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has like, I think I wouldn't go so far as supernatural without knowing more. I'd say it leaves it open to a lot of interpretation, but it also is more psychological because it feels like an examination of how people react to it more so than like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm wording this right.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it seems more like an examination of like, hey, 2% of the population disappeared. Over 100 million people are gone randomly out of nowhere. Let's look and see what happens after we shake up that snow globe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that really sets the show apart.
What would you have rather seen it on? Like, I know HBO, like I've never really watched shows on HBO before because of, like you said, it's a premium service and I just never did that. I think that if this show was relaunched, FX or FXX would be a perfect place for it.
Yeah, that's a great question. If it's going to be done by some broadcast network, to me, given restrictions by FCC and whatnot, these types of shows are limited when they're on. I know FXX gets away with a lot more, so that makes sense to me. I think they do, like American Horror Story gets away with a lot.
Yeah.
That I think, and I think they moved it from FX to FXX for that reason.
Yep. Like I don't even watch FX anymore because I don't know what's on it, because all the shows that I used to watch, like Sunny even, is on FXX now.
Right. Yeah. And I think part of that is like they realized we have an audience here like that is interested in what we're producing, that is maybe separated from the rest of our FX viewership. So let's make this separate area where we know these people are going to pay a premium maybe to watch this, and then they can our artists can have free reign. They can do whatever they want because we're not restricted as far as that goes. So I think that would be something that I need if they were going to remake this show. I think like I guess Netflix would do a pretty good. I mean, like I don't really trust Netflix with anything other than TV shows. Like if they were going to do a Leftovers movie, kind of like following up on some of the characters, I would never watch that.
Yeah, no, I don't. They've already like taken all of the animes that I like and not only made live action garbage animation, not live action versions of them, but they've also like taken animes that. Okay, so I'm still confused. I'm going to bring up Psyche K for a second, just because Netflix had the first 2 seasons, one in English, one in Japanese still. And then they released something else called Psyche K something Max, whatever, with a completely different English voice cast.
Oh, wow.
Nothing that I'm aware of as far as like the story. And I go on going, wait a minute. I go online and someone asked me, like, I saw something, a post about this, and someone's like, yeah, I don't know what the hell happened, but Netflix strikes again. And I was like, okay, that's all I need to know, because they totally butchered this show. So
yeah, I think FXX would do a good job of it.
I feel like they would respect
Hulu would probably do a good job with it. I think they seem to be doing some good TV work with devs, and apparently Dave is good.
Devs, I need to catch up with devs.
Yeah, that's good.
You need to watch Cake, by the way.
Ooh, I will add that to my watch list, and I will make sure that links to these shows are in the description.
So many shows.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, so much. But yeah. So I think Hulu would do a good job. So kind of going back to where I kind of branched us off in our discussion. So when discussions were happening, I don't think everyone was super on board from the get-go. I watched the first episode and I was like, I am all in. I am ready for the next episode. But I think it gained its following at a certain point in the first season. I'm just curious, was there a moment where you're like, I'm invested, I'm going to get through the rest of the season because I'm very curious where it's going? Was there a certain episode where that happened?
Honestly, what got me was it was a weird transition, because at first it was more so, I would say the first 3 episodes, and then figuring out that Garvey wasn't really the guy in the truck, especially when like you see his truck in the driveway. So like that caught me and it caught my attention. And then I kind of wanted to see what the I'm forgetting their name right now, because I have a thing with cults, and cults interest me sometimes because like, honestly, the delusion with cults.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so the guilty remnant.
Thank you. I keep going back. I was going to say the determinant, and that was not the name. The guilty remnant, I wanted to know what they were scheming, honestly. And I have history with cults, and I don't play well with them. But I will say that I was curious to see what their plan was, and they kept kind of teasing that as more time went on.
Oh, yeah, man.
And I think the ending of the season finale is when I was just like, whoa. Like, I can't even tell. Like, I can't tell. I go back and forth because I feel like for some people, I'm going to spoil the hell out of it, aren't I?
Well, that's what this is. Like, okay. we're full in spoilers. Like, watch the show is all I'm going to say.
I feel like some people had a cathartic feeling, like looking at an old picture and like remembering, right?
Yeah.
And other people went batshit insane from it. And I feel like, if something that traumatic happens, even if you don't know what caused it, you shouldn't forget about it. And it should be something that positively moves your life in the right way.
Absolutely.
Do I believe that like the cult had the best of intentions the whole time? Hell no. But I do think that like, that was far less sinister than I anticipated.
Yeah, and absolutely.
Like, that caught me off guard because they were depicted as like most cults are. And frankly, you know what? People can feel how they want about religion, but if you're a cult, stay the fuck out of my way. So like, and if you're a cult disguising yourself as a religion, you're worse. But I feel like these guys were different. Like, they weren't different. The guilty remnant, even in the name itself, it's like, well, we're here and this is why. I don't know. I just feel like at the end they were played up to be far more sinister than they actually were.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're like, and this happens a lot in media now, and I think it makes for more interesting and compelling characters. For me, like recent memory was like, I don't know if you saw Black Panther.
I actually didn't.
Oh, okay. So the villain in that movie, his name is Killmonger. He's kind of sympathetic. You understand why he's doing the things he's doing almost. Maybe you don't agree with the way he's going about it. And that's kind of how I feel about the guilty remnant. And I think we get into it further or more. But going back to like having one episode, I think for a lot of people it was first the episode where we kind of get the solo episode with Matt and him trying to win back his church. I think that was a very powerful episode, kind of gut wrenching. That was like the turn of the knife for gut wrenching, because I just feel like the show got more and more depressing as it went on.
That reminded me of Crash, actually. Have you ever seen that movie?
Oh my gosh, that movie is incredible.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. Actually, I forgot. That's what I want. I had notes on this, and I didn't bring my notes up. But this show reminded me of Crash, and especially that episode.
Totally.
Because you start to see how everything's intertwined, and just because something good happens doesn't mean it's going to stay good. And I think that's a good, humbling thing that people need to realize too, especially when it comes to like faith and religion. I think I'm not preaching here. I'm just saying what I'm saying. Like, people assume something's always going to be good, so they pray for that one good thing. But good things do happen to you, but bad things happen to you too. Like, that's reality. And it's like you said, this one turned the knife. It reminded me of Crash because it just made that like intricacy and that level get like wild.
Yeah, totally.
And as far as like the whole depressing part, I have a a guard when I watch certain things because I don't do the whole emotion thing super well when it comes to like a show wants me to feel something, but I have to be objective and watch the show. But like, holy crap, that was like, because for me it's weird. Like I don't have the separation if I allow myself between real life events that I'm aware of and have like helps people get through versus like watching a show that's made for entertainment. I have to separate that. Otherwise, like I'm pulled back into that whatever thing that happened. Not that I know 2% of any population that's disappeared besides ants by my own hands with a can of Raid. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, this is to me, I think I'm pretty in tune with, no, I don't know. I think I don't separate that well, and I think shows can kind of have a big impact on me. And this was certainly.
I know when I need to grab you.
Yeah,
Calvin, come back.
This is like one of those shows that had a huge like impact on me emotionally. Like, and one of the first times was the flashback episode to the day of the departures.
That one, I see that episode was cool to me because like when the show opens, you're thrown into like this already happened and people are dealing with it. But like having context was like so helpful.
Oh yeah, I think it was super interesting. Just the moment of the departure, seeing Nora, who is arguably my favorite character in the show. That moment when they disappear, her performance is Emmy Award winning. And it's an absolute travesty to me that she never got anything.
One thing you guys may have noticed about Calvin is that he's great at finding shows that really should have been represented better. Like that's your thing I've noticed of your media club picks. Like I go for just nonsense, but you've like really been like, no, I'm an advocate for this show. Here's why. I have the forums and the signatures that back it.
Oh yeah, I stand all of my shows that I bring to this podcast. I stand them hard. And
you haven't been wrong. That's the best part. Like,
I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm waiting for one where you're like, this is trash. Get this shit out of here.
That's the thing. Like, I know you, and even though we don't watch the same things all the time, I don't think things you like are trash. Like, there hasn't been anything that you show me where I haven't like been like, fuck. Like, even just something on a very high level. Because I have some friends who were talking a lot about the color palette on different shows and movies, and that's like messing my head a little bit. The way this has been shown and depicted, and the lighting they use, and like the angles, and even the vehicles they use, like all of that. Like when I watch a show now, it sucks because I see behind the production.
Oh yes, I love just that.
Like I watching the show itself. So it's like I see the show, but in my mind, I'm going, okay, cool. This is the show. This is the low angle sweeping shot. This is the camera they use. This is the lens they probably use. This is the water effect. I'm like, fuck, man, can I just enjoy a show again?
I totally did this to my wife, and it's my favorite because we have like super deep conversations about film now. But I was gonna say, so there's a scene, and I think it's kind of like trying to further question Kevin's sanity is the scene where he is driving his squad car, which is it's a Dodge, right?
I think so.
And it's the power goes out, I think, pretty much, because he loses brakes and then the engine goes off. And he throws the e-brake on. I was just curious from an engineer's perspective what you thought of that scene.
Okay, so first off, yes, it's a Dodge Charger.
Is it accurate?
E-brakes don't stop cars.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. Let me take that back. Let me take that back. So I'm just going to go back and rewatch the scene just to make sure. But I will say off the top of my head, just straightforward, an e-brake is not something you should try and pull to stop your car. Generally, they're only good for when you are stopped in motion and locking your rear wheels. Or if you're drifting. That's a whole other story. Whenever car stuff happens, whenever car things happen or gun things happen in shows, it always makes you laugh because it's like, in the story, it always plays well, right?
Oh, totally.
Like, it's always perfect.
Because you could see yourself in that situation usually.
Exactly. And like,
it's like, how would I react?
Yeah. And most people don't, look at cars and go like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I do because I trained to have my engine cut. Or, even something simple like we live in Michigan, it snows. I know how to handle if my car starts going to a little bit of a 360, but people in California, my friends, I tell them like, oh yeah, I was driving home and my car started to spin out a little bit and I caught it and kept driving. They like are horrified by the concept. Like, like, what are you talking about? I would say that given the fact that it's a show and the focus is on creating the terror, I'm going to say it wasn't accurate.
Okay.
But I will say that this show, and again, too, this show is designed to fuck with you. Like, that's the thing. If you want a show that's going to fuck with you, come watch this show. That's the reality.
100% the show fucks with you. And they does such a good job of it. Did you have a character? Oh, you know what? This is what I want to get into because this also is kind of gets into the world building. So we haven't talked about him at all. And he's one of the most important characters of this season. Holy Wayne.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Super important character. The first thing I want to ask you before we dive into who he is, do you think he was legit?
No.
You don't? Okay. Interesting.
And it's okay.
We can get into it further later on.
Like, I'll put it this way. I think that if you think about how alone and separated everyone felt, right? And let's see, if you think about how alone and like alone everyone felt, right? And then you go into like, how hard it must be to try to feel sympathy with people, especially when people are like all feeling the same thing. We've all lost people, blah, blah. And then he says, hey, I'm offering people the ability to like connect again and feel better. Through placebo effect? Probably.
Yeah.
Because like this is someone who seems immune and they're reaching out, but he also had a lot of wild stuff he was doing in the background too, who was like taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah, totally. And I think we can get into that more. So basically, Holy Wayne is this character. As these cults are popping up, this guy, Holy Wayne, emerges and he claims to cure people's sadness from everything that happened with the Great Departure by giving him a hug. And so we first learn about Wayne actually through way of Kevin's, I guess technically we learn later on, but we don't know at this point it's his stepson, Tommy, I think is what Kevin calls him. Yeah. He is basically a runner for Wayne. He brings in clientele to this compound that Holy Wayne has, and they're blindfolded so they don't know where they're going, and they go to meet Wayne, they give them a hug, and then they're driven back. So Tommy works for Holy Wayne and lives on this compound with all these young Asian women, and you don't really know, like, I shouldn't say women, they're girls, because we learn through the ATF, there's some scenes at the FBI where they're kind of hunting down Holy Wayne, that these are underage girls, and he's using them to basically recharge his powers, is what they say.
Yeah, okay, that's what they all say.
Yeah, right, exactly. But Tom is friends with one of these girls, and the compound gets raided. And Holy Wayne tells Tom that he needs, before this raid happens, he tells Tom that you need to protect this girl at all costs. She's like, I forget, there's a word he uses to describe her.
Is it Scion? It wasn't Scion.
No.
Something about like, not carrier, but like it's gonna bug me.
Yeah, she's like the one important cog to this whole thing. So he has to protect her at all costs. So he gives him a burner phone and some cash, and they run off. And one of the craziest scenes in this show, and I remember like screaming at the TV, was the scene where Tom goes to where he thinks Holy Wayne is, breaks in and finds the other pregnant girl. And then you realize that Holy Wayne has been impregnating these underage girls and then having these guys carry these girls across state lines and kind of staying underground, and that there's many of them. And that scene it shocked me. I don't know how you felt during it, but
you know how I feel during these kinds of things.
Well, anger.
You know exactly how I feel during these kinds of things.
Well, I think we're both in agreement that Wayne is a garbage person.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like and that's where the whole spiritual thing goes back and forth. I feel like the fanfare he put on to be like, oh, like, come give me a hug, you'll feel better. It's like, yeah, okay, but you put on you already take people who are in a desperate, weakened state. You make them go through a trial to make it feel like they're more important than everyone else to get this healing, to make this feel. It's the same way cults activate. You can't be better without me. And he probably tricked these same girls into doing the same goddamn thing. So, yeah, I'm sorry, people. Calvin likes to make me watch shows that are going to piss me off at the same time that make me like them.
It's certainly angering. I mean, like, it's certainly something I've thought about a lot. And my only argument for Wayne being legit is
he's a legit con artist and a pedophile.
Oh, certainly. I mean his powers that he claims he has.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
My fault.
Very good. That's what I was looking back to. Like, if you meant like legit, like, which way?
No, he's definitely a legit con artist. Is when. So there's a great episode. This is one of my favorites of the season. Is Nora goes to this conference in New York City, and she gets the opportunity to meet Holy Wayne.
That's right.
And he hugs her, and it seems like she's kind of, I mean, after that episode, things with her and Kevin start getting serious. They start dating, and things seem to be going really well for her. And that is all ruined with, I think we saved the finale episode for the end of this episode, but it does kind of get ruined by something the Guilty Remnant do.
Yes. I say too, that the whole Nora part, like, I feel like a lot of people, she was trying to find a way to either forget or create a normal. And what she chose to be either one just kind of just varied. Like, everyone else had their own crazy version of like what their normal was going to be or what their way of dealing with this is going to be. I feel like when, like you mentioned, they start dating and talking again, I kind of feel weird about that. I wasn't sure if it was like which version of her was really like her, like, accepting versus like not accepting, like that's where I kind of was weird with like where people were deciding to draw the line between what was going to be their new normal and good or what was going to be their new normal and bad.
Yeah.
And like the show took you up and down so many like different roller coasters.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Trying to keep track of everybody. It was crazy.
The other thing that I think is maybe a point in the column of his powers being legit is the last scene that Holy Wayne is alive for. And it is when Kevin finds him, I assume, stabbed or shot in the bathroom. And Wayne is dying. And he says to Kevin, I think I'm a fraud. And that, I'm not who I say I am. And I don't think he knows that Kevin doesn't know who he is. Like, I think he's just talking to him like man to man type thing. But he tells him, ask for a wish and I will grant it. You don't have to say it. Yeah. And I think there was a lot of discussions when that all happened about what Kevin's wish was, because we don't know. He doesn't vocalize it.
Right.
But given the finale, it seems to me that Wayne was somewhat legit as far as his powers go. I
feel like that's a bit of a stretch.
You think so? What do you think Kevin wished for?
That's the thing. So I think once a zealot lunatic dirtbag who can justify even his most evil actions and desires. I think when he decides to confront himself by asking him the question of, I think I'm a fraud, I think that goes down a whole new path versus like, I don't like when people can make excuses for why they did things. And then his revelation of, oh, I think I'm a fraud, let me see if I can grant your wish, is separate from what actually happens. And the way it's written, you want it to believe that, oh, the wish came true. But looking at how Wayne's looking at Kevin, he could be like, I want this fucking dirtbag to die. Look at this guy. Look at him. He's dying already. What's happening? More loss in my life. Am I real? Who's real? Where's the dog guy? You know, there's just like so much, you know, I don't know. I just feel like that at that point in time, my mind had already shifted and I didn't care. Like, sure, if he had powers or not. Like,
you would just watch the full season of him being an absolute monster. So
yeah, so
totally
like,
fair.
He doesn't get a reprieve because, oh, you know, he didn't realize. Because that's the one thing I hate too. When people are like, well, so and so didn't realize they were doing a bad thing. Shut the fuck up.
Well, yeah, that's so funny because when that scene happens, it's like, oh, maybe he like had good intentions because he's like, oh, maybe I'm not what I thought I was, but it's like. You're still a monster. Like, in what world do you need to recharge your powers by molesting underage girls? Like, it's crazy. But it makes for an interesting discussion.
No, it totally does. I just hate the whole sympathy for the devil approach that people who are sympathetic towards that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Like, they can justify the abuse and negligence of someone else's, like, personal rights and free will for the sake of art or for the sake of, like, oh, well, you know, like, no, there is no, you know, game over. Like, fuck that.
Yeah. I will say there's a interesting ARG that kind of happened around Holy Wayne with the show. So Steve, the guy who runs the other podcast that's doing a rewatch right now, right before the episode aired with the compound break-in. So I guess, was that the first episode? No, I think it was like 3 or 4. But before that episode aired, HBO shipped him a burner phone with the smiley face on it, and after which I just think is so fantastic.
I love. Okay, I will say this: I do love when like pranks like that go beyond like whatever the show is.
Well, yeah, because it like brings it into the real world, and obviously, you know, we're all adults. We realize that this is not reality, but it adds another level to the show. After the episode aired, they sent him a text on that burner phone as Holy Wayne. So I just think that's super cool, and I think that's like marketing done right.
Oh yeah, that's definitely fourth wall breaking and like getting people involved.
Totally. I definitely have something for Media Club that I think will lead to interesting discussions, specifically because of like ARG. So who is your favorite character? Who do you find the most compelling on the show?
You know what? Because he took up most of my time watching. Ooh, I had a split between this one. Can I name a pair of people?
Oh, totally. Name who you want. Is it the twins?
Garvey boys.
Oh, okay.
Father and son.
Totally. The scene where so Cairo, I think, is considered kind of the episode that brought a lot of people into, which is the episode where Kevin realizes he's kidnapped Patty and brought her out to Cairo, New York.
Yeah. Okay. Also, what the hell?
Oh, dude, is that episode not insane?
That was.
I will just say, so the episode, what I mean with the Garvey boys, there's a scene where he ends up in an insane asylum and he has this really long conversation with his dad, and his dad tells him that he's being called upon. I just think that scene, them together, they're great together. They're a good acting pair. We can get into the Cairo episode. Do you have some stuff you want to say about it?
Not particularly, not just yet, but that when you said that, I was like, okay, I'm remembering my notes now. But
that episode is so fantastic. So yeah, like, so is it mostly just because you spend so much time with Kevin and Garvey Sr. that they're kind of the most compelling characters to you?
I feel like it's just because, especially because of Kevin, I feel like this is one show where too I had to take a step back and also put myself in and kind of go, okay, because people like I think gave Kevin's character shit. Gave Kevin shit for like trying to forget, but he wasn't forgetting anything. He just had a higher job to do as an officer and as like a man in the community to try to keep everyone else together. Like he did a pretty good job while trying to keep everyone sane, you know? And
that's like, interesting. That's really interesting.
I think it's kind of a dick move to like ignore him. It's almost like, you know, he is experiencing everything too and dealing with his own like psychosis, well, not psychosis, but his own like trauma. But still trying to put on a brave face and like handle everyone else's shit at the same time. And I was just curious to see how like they broke that down, because you see that all the time in different shows and movies, especially with like fathers and things like that. When there's a traumatic event that happens, they are always putting on the brave face. But when they really broke this one down too, he's not just an officer; he's the chief of fucking police.
Yeah,
like that's so. Not only is he going through it on like he's going through it on so many different levels, and then the people he reaches out to, like when he goes and sees his dad, it's like. It doesn't even really like bring home is this real or not, you know, like I don't know, he's like I think during another watch through, like he's still gonna be the person I follow the most. And I will put it this way too, and I know it's kind of bad at me, but any show that has like teen angst in it, regardless of the setting or what happens, I'm just gonna ignore them.
Interesting. Yeah. I think it's a turnoff for a lot of people. And it's funny because you were talking about Netflix and live action anime adaptations. Do you know who Jill is?
No, I didn't watch any live action anime adaptations.
I forgot you had not seen the Death Note live action.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay. Yeah. So Margaret Qualley, who plays Jill in Leftovers, she's, Mia. She's Kira.
No way.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. I mean, that's good. Like I said, it's always good for the actors. Never going to get back.
No.
Even Holy Wayne, you played a fucking dirtbag, but I'm not mad at you. You got to get.
Oh no, yeah, his performance was fantastic. And
I will say this though. Any character that will accept a role where there's a violent rape scene, you can go fuck yourself. Don't care. You're never gonna get on my side about that. I don't care how much they fucking paid you. Fuck off.
Oh man, I'm never gonna have you watch Irreversible then.
No, you shouldn't, and you know you shouldn't.
No, yeah, I certainly won't do that.
Because you know what the answer will be. I'm calling the cops.
It's awesome. Okay.
But yeah, I think. How about you? What are who's your favorite character? Or okay, so you watched all 3 seasons.
Oh,
but you haven't read the book, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm curious to see if your favorite character changes if you read the book.
Oh, interesting. Well, maybe we revisit that. My favorite character, I think, is probably Nora.
Okay. I just mentioned her more than everyone else so far.
Yeah. She's. I like her, and I like Patty. I think Patty's I think maybe because. If you continue to watch the show, they kind of grow her character out more. So Nora is just like super complex. Like the episode, I mean, every episode she's in, I think she steals it. I think she's one of the best actresses on that show, and brings a lot to her performance. I mean, I guess we can get into it. So, because we're at an hour here.
That was fast, actually.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how quick this discussion went. But this show like totally warrants that. I could talk about this show for days. And
plus, I mean, this isn't even a deep dive. This is like an overview.
I know, it's crazy. We've like barely scratched the surface. So like the whole season, the Guilty Remnant's like building up to something. They, episode 3, they buy the church from under Matt, and you're like, yep. What's the plan here? And then they're getting all these clothes brought to them, and then they're stealing documents from the government, and then they're having. So in the episode where Nora goes to, and it's mentioned earlier, but in the episode where Nora goes to the conference, she meets with this guy who sells basically replicas of people that departed, and it's a service people can pay for, and you send in pictures, and then you basically get a replica of the your person.
Right.
So then you see that the guilty remnant gets this big shipment of, you don't know what's inside yet, but then they start putting the bodies in these dresses. Come to find out, while everyone's sleeping, they break into everyone's homes and they take the clothes of the people that were their family and had departed and basically put them where they were right when they departed.
Which is a crazy undertaking, by the way.
Oh, absolutely insane. But I mean, I guess they take up a whole cul-de-sac in a neighborhood. So I guess if you get one house, I mean, it's a pretty small town, but still it's insane. Like there's the episode where they take all the pictures out of the picture frames. Yeah. Like even that seems daunting because they did that in the span of like a party. Cause it happened during like when Kevin found the Jesus statue.
Yeah.
Like it
that was the biggest kick in the fucking nuts,
dude, that scene is so fucking awkward. He's like, I found Jesus, and you're waiting because the mayor's like, the city really needs this and they're going to be really happy if you find it, and he tells everyone that they found it, and it's so fucking awkward. Like they do not give a shit at all that he found the baby Jesus.
Oh yeah, that
yeah, but like it's super daunting task to like, and I guess that's why they dress them up at the start. It's like we just put the bodies where they were and then we leave, but it's still like insane that they were able to do that for a town.
And I think just knowing everyone else's like their whereabouts, the time where they usually go to sleep when they wake up, not to wake them up while you're doing it. Like, sorry, my mind goes into caper mode at that point. So it's like, how do you pull off this caper? And it's like
totally, and that's and I think the show does a good job where it's like believable. I mean, when they're not doing that stuff, when they're not scheming, they stalk people. Yeah. I mean, there's, and that's like, they're recruiting people. Like there's the scene with Liv Tyler when she gets recruited. That's Steven Tyler's daughter, right?
How could I not know?
Okay. I guess you've seen Lord of the Rings. So
Lord of the Rings.
That's like what she's known for.
No, it's not.
What is she known for?
The original Hulk.
Oh my God, she is.
Yeah.
Okay. I know her more as Arwen, I guess.
Oh yeah, no, I know her as like getting Hulk smashed by Ed Norton.
I mean, good for her. Ed Norton's he's a cutie.
He also worked for the UN. I don't know if you know that.
Really? Edward Norton did?
I'm pretty sure he works for the UN.
We'll fact check this but there's the scene where they're stalking her, and that's like they're recruiting her. So it seems like believable that they would have all this information on people because they're recruiting people within the town. And so that those people that are recruited know all about their family and probably know a lot about their neighbors, and they can easily collect that information. So I think it's feasible that they would know like when these people are sleeping and stuff like that. So that scene when Nora comes down to the kitchen and she sees her family sitting at the kitchen table right as they were when they departed, and her breakdown. I mean, that scene like almost brought me to tears, man. That like she is so believable in that. It's unbelievable.
I will say this show, if I had to rate it in level of shots, like one shot versus 10 shots versus how many times I'd have to take a shot just to get through it. We had 20 out of 10 shots.
Oh my gosh!
Because the amount of times I would just go, fuck.
I know, it's so unrelenting too. It's like it seems like every episode has like a gut punch moment. But yeah, so she's certainly my favorite. Is there anything you want to ask me? Is there certain stuff that you had questions about that you were hoping to get answered before we wrap this up, and you recommend what we watch next time?
Honestly, you told me not to expect answers, so I didn't really like prepare any.
Okay.
I decided to enjoy the ride instead.
Sweet.
Because I just figured you told me that wouldn't happen. Like, so I just didn't do it.
Yeah. All right. Fair. Totally fair.
Also, Ed Norton was, if I'm looking at this right, he was a UN ambassador.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sure if he's still doing that now, but he definitely is in politics and social causes.
Very cool. I'm down with it. I love Ed Norton. He's one of my favorite actors, probably.
When he did, the Hulk with him. I was mad when Mark Ruffalo. I wasn't mad. I was sad to not see Ed Norton return. Mark Ruffalo did a great job, but Ed Norton's Hulk was badass.
Oh yeah, I think he's number 2. Like, I think he's better than Eric Bana for sure. No offense to Eric Bana. I like Eric Bana, but
the best Hulks are Lou Ferrigno.
Dude, that guy. I meant movies, I guess. Lou Ferrigno is such a sweetheart. I met him at Comic-Con one year. He's such a nice guy. We were both in casts. So we spent like 10 minutes talking about that. He was just a really sweet guy. So, okay, if you don't have any questions, I guess we'll wrap this up. I think this is the perfect show. I don't think most people will agree with me on that, but that's okay.
Listen, I'll advocate for you for this. If you like emotional roller coaster, gut punching shows that really make you think and wonder and evaluate your own life and how you handle trauma response, watch this show. I will say I don't think it was marketed well because even I didn't know about it,
Totally. I think HBO totally brushed the show under the rug. Like, so I have been on the lookout for a box set because I collect box sets for like my favorite shows. Like I have the Breaking Bad box set in the barrel. I was looking for one for this show. HBO sold the distribution rights to some other company for their own show. And that company has refused to do like a US release box set. Weird. So I fully agree that the show is totally undermarketed.
So I will say that like it's a good show if you're into that. I don't particularly like going on emotional roller coasters, but if you do, this show will definitely get you going. Like that's hands down. And this just from a media, I want this show to get more attention, especially because I think it's a good like way to digest and break down how well things can be done. And similar to how when we watch Burning, storytelling can be done with the environment as well as the characters.
Totally. Absolutely.
Silent fucking acting, dude. I mean, come on.
Oh man, dude, I will praise Ann Dowd till the end of my days. She is incredible in this show. And if you continue to watch this, anyone that listens and you, Zach, if you like continue to watch the show, like her performance just gets better and better. But if you do continue watching, arguably the best episode of the entire series is in this season 2. And it's called International Assassin.
The name itself already has me intrigued.
Dude, it is like it's
because that plays directly to things I like.
it is at like, so if you consider the tone of season 1 and compare it to this episode, International Assassin, they're polar opposites. This episode is completely bonkers. Like if you don't watch season 2 at all, just watch International Assassin because I think it, like, even standalone, it is super awesome to watch.
Now I'm intrigued. I think I might watch International Assassin alone first, and then watch season 2.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay.
I'm gonna go way off.
I don't know if it's gonna work, but I hope it does. I was just throwing that out there. I just think it's like a really great standalone.
Now you sold me. Now I have to do it.
It's not even really standalone. There's going to be some context that you're missing, but I think the events that happen and the tone of the episode is super interesting. So that was our discussion of season 1 of Leftovers.
I'm currently drinking water, so I don't have a drink to.
I am too. So yeah, I'm not pimping any drink. I have a bunch of LaCroix next to me.
Oh, why?
Dude, I fiend for like soda water, and so this is better for me than like a Mountain Dew. So
fair enough. I mean, Mountain Dew is not good for anything, but
exactly. So I mean, at least LaCroix is like no calories. So
I will shout out, since I am drinking water, and I just recently purchased another one of these insulated containers. I will shout out Arctic.
Oh, nice.
It's RTIC. It's a great brand. I have a stainless steel tumbler that my wife got me with the quote from The Office, Bears Eat Beets. Bears Beets, Battlestar Galactica, the picture of Jim. And I just purchased a 1-gallon insulated stainless steel Arctic
awesome
water bottle because I need to work on my hydration during the day. So
hell yeah, dude. And
I'll shout that out.
Yeah, Arctic's great. I think they're an awesome alternative to Yeti too.
And Clean Canteen.
Oh, yeah.
I love all three of those brands, but Arctic has been the best for my price point. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's more accessible. Okay, so we don't really shout out businesses normally, so I don't have anything. You shouted out Arctic, which is great. Support Arctic. Do you have a piece of media for us to consume?
Yes, I want you to go watch Cake.
Cake, right? Okay.
Cake season 1. Cake is a Cake is a mishmash show, similar to how I believe SNL wants to be, where it's engaging and funny, but it's just, SNL's not. So
nice.
I will say that it's funny because it caught me off guard because it's a skit-based show where it's a collaboration between animation and real life. But it also has a lot of things that can be just completely irreverent and hilarious or very gritty and emotional, which I know you like. So
totally,
this will be a show that combines both of our interests. Excellent. Go watch season 1 of Cake.
I'm excited, and it looks like season 2 just finished airing, which is awesome. So I may have watched season 2.
I'm halfway through season 2, I think.
Nice, excellent. There's some great actors in here and some comedians. Natasha Lyonne, who's known for Orange is the New Black. I don't know if anyone's seen that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know, I'm sure you have. I'm just, our audience that doesn't exist.
I had to. You know what? Even if we get people who listen constantly, I still want to use that joke.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I don't care. It's.
I think, by the way, I will say the main reason I went to go watch Orange is the New Black. Do you want to know that main reason?
Yeah, absolutely.
Laura Prepon.
Oh, she is so good in that show. Like I stopped after season 4, I think. I just kind of lost interest, but I stuck around for her. She makes that show, and my wife's read the book, and apparently it's worth reading. So we may have to start bringing in graphic novels and books and video games into this. So I think next time I'm gonna bring a video game, maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's a game that I can, like, on a console I can play.
Oh, it's a free game that you can play on your PC, and it's not demanding at all.
Oh, interesting.
And it's super short. So
even more intriguing from you because you like long things.
I do. Well, I also need to be realistic about, these come out every 2 weeks, so it's got to be something we can relatively easily consume. So
what's the longest game you've played?
Just
kidding. If you want to find that out, tune into a normal episode of This Podcast Is for Nerds. And that was not how you do an exit. You want to know how you do an exit? You don't do an exit, because just like when we play with your emotions in Leftovers, we play with your emotions here too. But maybe one day you'll get the answer you all want to know about. Will we stop playing with your emotions? The answer is no. But for now,
definitely not.
Yeah, definitely not. For now, be safe in this COVID environment, in this COVID world, and we will see you next time on This Podcast Is for Nerds.
Beautifully done.